So, don't you just hate it when you're making yourself a cheese sandwich and you accidentally kind of invent a cure for cancer instead, but now you have to throw it out because it's not even edible? I hate it when it happens. So, imagine one day you woke up and discovered you owned the entire model architecture, source code, and the entire database for AI property, 20 times more advanced than ChatGPT, when the only AI of being capable of such autonomy, visibility, and personability was Last Vision, which took an infinity stone and a god to come alive, and you just created an autonomous holographic self-sufficient technology trained by your own memories, completely by accident and completely cost-free, when it took Tony Stark himself a fortune and years of development to hijack Hippocampus to create Barf, and you did that by accident. And there you are saying, wait, that LOL, I have no time for this. I need to join a criminal gang to make money. Bitch, you just pooped out money by sleeping. And even if some piece of metal crap is more important to you than one of the most significant breakthroughs in AI technology, then just fucking sell it for $1 bajillion. No need to break a fucking law. Heck, you don't even have to sell it completely. Just commercialize and monetize your own API and you're going to be richer than Bezos in like 5 minutes. Unless you have very strict moral and ethical principles advocating against you commercializing your tech or working under other institutions, but your name is Riri Williams, and your standards are lower than your writer's IQs, so you are a money printing machine protesting underpayment, and I want to fry your microchips. This show is about a story about a broke outcast tech genius will and could never work unless it's 1950s and your name is Alan Turing. Nowadays, terms tech genius and broke are simply anonymous. There's too much money and demand in this field for a person like you, a vibranium detector inventor for CIA, to ever stay unemployed, bankrupt, or underfunded. And the only way to accomplish the challenging task of thinking otherwise is to be an ignorant, overpaid LA arts major who has never seen a microcontroller before. Oh wait, this show is what happens when you let a bunch of theater kids with autistic fixation on Hamilton write a script about tech of all things. You know just how incompetent these people are at depicting you as a tech prodigy? At the end of the show, you defeat the bad guy using voodoo and tarot magic because you're such a tech genius. Elon Musk's fake programming skills have filed for bankruptcy. A tech prodigy resorting to witchcraft to defeat the villain is so original if you think about it. Original isn't throwing a can of tuna into a pancake batter. Yummy. Riri, you are a Mozart of tech, my darling girl. You are a struggling, underappreciated, undiscovered, misunderstood artist with a vision nobody gets. It's not like technology is scientific or that its success is binary, not subjective, and its failure rate is completely independent from fashion trends or people not getting it.
I'm an engineer. What I'm building is
important?
iconic.
You need to create something iconic, and you will. How else? You're more productive in your sleep than a Nolan character from Inception. But anyway. I decided to make this video 5 months too late for no other particular reason, but to take an opportunity to exercise my privilege of being a woman in STEM to on you, a fictional woman in STEM written by people whose only encounter with a keyboard seems to be that one time when they mistook it for a toilet seat and pooped this crap onto it. I am not here to ridicule women or their colorful, sparkly ways of expressing themselves or describing their works and passions in a very appropriately nuanced term such as iconic. However, I will ridicule unqualified and insultingly tone-deaf person who has single-handedly entitled themselves to act as our representative for a category of women including myself, who to this day suffer from being dismissed and undervalued within their own field of expertise. The empty brains behind loud mouths like these are the reason we are never taken seriously, because this is how we are represented in media, superficial and unsophisticated. I think Elle Woods is one of the most perfect examples of women in professional, male-dominated fields. She strikes a perfect balance between professionalism, competency, but also femininity, sparkles, and glitter. However, on the unironically vast spectrum of girlbossery, there's a thin line between Elle Woods and something I call a complete and utter incompetent moron. That is you, Riri Williams. When I'm not too busy being translucent, I'm a very feminine presenting woman who likes pink, watches rom-coms when depressed, and is unfortunately pressured by her mom to wear nail polish on her toes, which is weird, and why do we do that? But I'm also possibly the biggest nerd you've ever fucking met. And yes, I am not like other girls, you can suck my dick. And a lot of the times, just based on my physical presence and appearance alone, I've had people take a single look at me and automatically dismiss and undermine my professionalism and intelligence based on those same factors. Heck, I'm sure there are people listening to this doing that same thing just now. But surprisingly, I don't hold a grudge against those people, because I would do the same. I do the same all the time. Nor do I think that their skepticism is rooted in pure sexism when I think that it's a natural reaction and a knee-jerk instinct when the only representation of feminine competency and professionalism in media 9 times out of 10 is a woman like you. Why would anyone take a look at me and assume I'm anything but? We women exist in 2 cinematic extremes in media, either as men or sticks with tits and ass in jean commercials, which is fine, but quite inconvenient for me because if you haven't noticed, I only exist in 2 dimensions. Historically and culturally until very last few decades, due to patriarchal structure, we only ever saw men in professional roles, both in fiction and in real life, which created a psychological disconnect and a lag, where we have been fundamentally and instinctively falsely programmed to think that competency is principally described and represented by the traits of masculinity, and vice versa. But the underlying truth is that in the long history of mankind, so it happened that 2 random irrelevant terms such as professionalism and balls have been grouped together in a relevant way, and now till the end of time their coupled presence will scratch a little itch in our little monkey brains, not because they were made for each other, but because we've grown so familiar to them that we adopted them as our cultural canon. And as a result, you, Riri, suffer from what I like to refer as a synthetic dick syndrome. This phenomenon occurs when Hollywood is forced into performing its most despised daytime activity, writing competent women. However, unfortunately, my darling girl, as I mentioned 100 videos and accompanying 100 years prior, Hollywood still cannot write strong women. So it just writes castrated men, since it still cannot fathom the concept of professionalism or competency without accompanying testicles. So it just draws a cock over it like a bored first grader and calls it a day. Hollywood is more scared of vaginas than a virgin male is, so they both live it up to women to do their job for them, but newsflash, without proper knowledge or research, women could be just as bad at understanding themselves as any of you, my sweet little Virgos. Who knew that it was all up to us as responsible individuals to educate ourselves on a given subject, not ping-pong incompetence between one another hoping to somehow miraculously hit the right button. Henceforth, this eternal phobia of depicting femininity in blockbuster genres almost always results in writers perpetuating the worst parts of masculinity because for some reason we deemed aggressiveness and grumpiness as an ultimate sign of strength, authority, competency, and professionalism. And I don't know if you have ever seen or heard a woman trying to overcompensate for their femininity by internalizing masculine traits for personal gain in professional male-dominated fields, but historically, it does not go down all that well. And the same goes for fictional women. Yet people don't realize they don't hate strong women. They just hate Hollywood's definition of what strength in a female is, which is rigidity, aggression, temper issues, narcissism, resulting in fictional women like you, who are entitled, irritating, irritable, which makes sense as it's the only thing Hollywood has ever learned how to draw, not that it's difficult. However, it is a proven fact that humans are capable of watching thousands and thousands of minutes and hours of a serial murderer who skins and eats people as a side hobby, but when it comes to a morally ambiguous female character, their mere presence alone seems to be more nauseating and upsetting than 10,000 little Walter Whites stacked on top of one another. Smells kinda sexist to me, which leads us to a conspiracy theory on the World Wide Web that we critical people of the internet are somehow prejudiced against women, less willing to forgive or tolerate their mistakes, flaws, moral ambiguity, or anti-heroism, as opposed to male characters like early on Tony Stark or Loki, which is a deeply unfortunate conspiracy that could not be more true. But Riri, I don't think you suck because you're a woman, or even because you robbed a fictional place I don't give a shit about. No, you are unbearable simply because your personality is a literary equivalent of a gum being stuck at the bottom of my shoe. And it's not the vagina that you and all those other female characters most notably share. No, that's just mere correlation. It's the complete and utter lack of personality, temper, tact, or likability, all of which you had to sacrifice to Hollywood Jesus in the name of becoming a strong, independent, cockless man. I mean a woman. Differently from most male characters of your genre, evidently and unfortunately so. Because you see, in fiction, to be annoying is the only actual crime a fictional criminal could ever commit, regardless of genitalia. When it comes to morally ambiguous characters, it all waters down to us being able to empathize with them, despite their moral standing, not only through context of their predicament, but also through their character writing. Are they loyal? Are they entertaining? Are they funny? Are they cool? Are they hardworking? Do they harbor personal traits, characteristics, and qualities outside of morality that are conventionally appealing to us as regular people? If the show with a morally ambiguous protagonist wants us on its side, it needs us to be biased, subjective, compromised, even irrational at times. Yes, he does cook crystal meth, but he also does kind of have cancer. Yes, he is a genocidal maniac, but he's so cool. Oh, and also I've heard he doesn't rape women, so. Yes, Riri might have stolen a thing or two, or killed a guy or two, or blackmailed another guy or two, but she's a... There's not a single scene in this entire show where you give us a reason to be biased towards your favor. Not a single time do you come off respectful towards any of your scene partners. Throughout this entire video, I've been trying to tortuously tie in a single specific example of your misbehavior or unlikability, but it's like trying to serve an ocean in a fishing ball. This entire show is a representation of how unpleasant it is to be in your presence, even through the protection of the fourth wall. You joined a criminal gang of deserted Funko Pops because you wanted to make money for your iron suit, which you needed to protect your family. Not because they were in any immediate danger. No, it's because you can't see beyond your damn skull, probably due to the amount of eye rolling that you do on a daily basis. You're not just unlawful, you're selfish, unprincipled, and a liar. Because maybe it's my lame non-genius, non-prodigy brain, but I struggle to see how developing a military-grade weapon and associating yourself with a gang of murderers would decrease your or your family's chances of being chemically dissected. It's like joining a wolf pack to overcome your fear of poodles. But the worst part is that you don't turn against those same criminals because they are simply bad people. Nor do you do it to not compromise your own family, since you already have done that by joining in the first place. No, you do it only because and only when your own life is on the line. The only excuse I have not to actively root against you, Riri, is the fact that the show bets on me being scared shitless of on a defenseless little black girl, but conveniently, I don't give a f. You could be a floating cotton candy flavored rainbow and I'd still make fart jokes at your expense. And no, writers, having a dead dad does not annul any of the awful traits you've ascribed to your protagonist, like it didn't for Tony. Let's talk about Tony for a minute. Tony Stark at the beginning of Iron Man is a literal industrial weapons dealer. However, we as viewers do not turn against him as long as Tony himself remains likable. That is what makes the opening sequence of Iron Man a filmmaking masterpiece, because the scene knows exactly what it needs to do to make Tony appealing to the general audience in a matter of seconds, only with a handful of lines of dialogue. This scene wins us over by establishing that there is an undeniable tact under that mask of arrogance. Tony respects his subordinates. He's playful, funny, self-aware. Technically, he's not a war criminal, but we don't know that yet. So we like him despite the possibility of him being one, just based on the fact that we find him impossibly charming and engaging, just based on a single simple exchange. If in this seemingly very trivial scene Tony refused a simple act of taking a picture with a random soldier, we would like Tony significantly less than we did when we learned that he's a weapon manufacturer and a potential war criminal. It does not make sense, and it's all that actually matters in writing. And the good news is, establishing all these traits does not take away from the probable moral ambiguity of Tony Stark outside of the context of the scene, so we can actually have both a likable character and a satisfying arc and development later on. This is what we call a layered character writing, and no, it's not edible, put it down. Meanwhile, the very first thing we see you do is to be ungrateful and completely disrespectful, not just to some strangers, no, towards the very people that have been supporting your moronic and psychologically obsession with manufacturing uncategorized and unregistered deadly weaponry for years, and as a gratitude you snarl, growl, and commit both academic and property theft against them. It's often quoted that at the end of the day people won't remember what you did or said, they will remember how you made them feel. This also very much applies to characters. We may not remember any specific line Riri Williams ever said, we may not recall her story arc, character decisions, however, as long as we can remember her name, we will remember the complete and utter feeling of dread we associate with the mere presence of her ever-rolling eyeballs. Modern Hollywood is so feminist, so progressive, so forward-thinking that it keeps on generously giving us women what we deserve. Off-brand knockoffs, leftovers scrapped up from the floor of the mushed residue of the great but dead male characters of the past, blessing us with female characters that are verbally, emotionally, physically aggressive every second they're on screen just to prove themselves capable of it, just to at the end of the day turn around and use them as the very excuse why we women don't deserve great female characters due to being unprofitable, unfavored, or simply impossible. Boo! You thought you got rid of me, huh? I am here to quickly announce that I now am the owner of an Instagram account. Not because I like Instagram, or that I particularly know how to use it, or that I want to post something specific on it, but because I should just delete it.